Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Frauds. Now, normally I don't have to make an intro before an episode, but this time is a little bit of a special occasion, mainly because Matt's audio in this episode is a little weird. Matt doesn't have a lot of privacy at our home, not our home, but at his home. Matt and I do not live together, but at his home, mainly because it's quarantine, his family is all there, and there's not a lot of privacy during the day for him. So at a certain point, you're going to hear some background noise in his stuff. I think one of his parents walks in the background, and he actually has to change locations eventually. So I think once he changes locations, the audio also becomes a little less better. I mean, it's not great anyways because we use pretty crappy mics, but it gets a little more echoey. But that's basically just it. You're going to hear a little bit of background noise, and he's going to change location. So there might be a little few cuts because we start topics and then have to pause the recording and then go back again. So this first third might be a little awkward at the beginning, but we eventually get back into our stride and have a really great episode about Game of Thrones. So if you guys are new here, we basically talk about movies and stuff like that, but every once in a while we talk about Game of Thrones stuff too and kind of other special topics because we like that stuff. But again, this time I just have to record this intro because the audio is weird. All right, enjoy, guys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Film Frauds, where we give our completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and the past. But today, we're not talking about a movie. We're talking about Game of Thrones. More importantly, how Game of Thrones has affected our culture post the Season 8 finale. So, Tyler, I'm joined with Tyler and Mark, my two banner lords, and Mark, what's like your credentials for Game of Thrones? Like, what is your history with the source material?
I watched the whole series.
Yeah.
Well, I watched it because of you, Matt. You were watching it and you wouldn't shut up about it, and I was like, "What the heck is this kid talking about?" And then Tyler didn't know, and I was like, "Well, if I watch the show, and if Tyler hasn't seen it, and then Matt and I have this thing that Tyler's not a part of."
That's basically why I watched the show because I didn't want to be left out anymore.
So yeah, all I knew was about like the Red Wedding, and so I watched it, and I was like, "This is amazing." And so every single day,
did you watch like the season 1 premiere like 10 times?
it took me like it was like four times.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, every time I watched it, I was like, I really want to watch Game of Thrones, but and then you watch the first episode, it's like, what is going on? Who are these people? What do all these terms mean? And I just sort of pushed through the first season because I really want to be able to talk about this with you, Matt.
Yeah.
And this is like, what, 6 years ago, 2014?
Yeah.
I think it was when season 4 was premiering. That's when I was catching up because the first episode I watched that was concurrent with, the TV show being released was The Mountain and the Viper.
Yeah.
So that's what that. And then when season 8 ended, I was very jaded. And I bought The World of Ice and Fire, and I read the whole thing. And then I read the books, and I've read the books, and then I read the first Dunk and Egg story.
Yeah.
And I haven't read the other two, and I haven't read Fire and Blood, but that's
Tyler,
what I know.
What are your Game of Thrones credentials?
Oh my god. So I was basically a very long-standing opponent against good television and good movies for a while. And then eventually you guys kept talking about it. So we were like sophomores, juniors in high school?
Yeah.
And you guys kept talking about it enough that I was working at a library at a time where I rented seasons 1 through 4 on DVD. I watched them all in about a week and a half. And then I wasn't watching because I don't have HBO. So I couldn't watch season 5 when it happened. So I had to catch up with season 5. And then season 6 is when I started kind of trying to watch it right after. I was trying to find ways, wink, wink, of watching it. But I've read the books once through. I've seen the show once through. I like it all. But it's not one of those shows where I'm going to go back and like I feel like rewatching an episode season 4 right now. It's not really kind of my thing, but I still kind of respect and admire the impact it's had and the kind of writing. I mean, I've read all the books. They're not the shortest reads. They took me about a month to read each. So I enjoyed them. Yeah. So that's basically, I watched it to be friends with you guys is basically how it all went.
So I'm definitely the biggest Game of Thrones fan here. I was watching the show since season 1, even though I didn't understand anything that was going on because I was a stupid kid in high school. And I read all the books twice. I've watched the first 4 seasons of the show countless times over and over again. And I've read The Tale of Dunk and Egg. In high school, I'd go home every day and go on the Game of Thrones wiki, the Song of Ice and Fire wiki, and like read up about stupid things about old kings and old characters. And I've read a couple of George R.R. Martin's short stories as well, so I'm pretty like well versed in his literature. But specifically, I wanted to start this conversation off with the present day. More importantly, Game of Thrones was one of the most watched shows of all time. I think it's the most watched series finale ever.
Yeah.
Which is crazy considering it's on HBO and it's not on basic cable.
I think the only thing that ever really is like MASH season, like the final episode of MASH. Yeah. Nothing will probably ever beat that.
Yeah. But like MASH was on general TV and it was also not. It's like Game of Thrones is only for adults, really. So it's impressive that it managed to achieve the scale of viewership. And this is probably season 8 was probably the most talked about thing amongst people. As it was coming out because it was so bad, but so many people were into the show. And 1 year later, do you see any more impact of Game of Thrones in pop culture, making comparisons to other fantasy series like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings? Whereas Harry Potter, I was flipping through the TV stations the other day, and USA was advertising Harry Potter marathon for the weekend. And of course, Lord of the Rings is in talks right now, having a Amazon TV show. Do you see what is Game of Thrones' legacy right now as you see it?
So I feel like the best way to kind of compare the two, and unfortunately I have to compare Game of Thrones to how Star Wars has kind of been with the last 3 movies. Yeah. Because Game of Thrones had this weird trend where we should also preface, we are big fans of the first 4 seasons. Yeah. Seasons 5 and 6 are very iffy.
Season 6 is terrible. Season 5 is
I think season 6 has good moments. Season 7 and season 8, Matt and I, because we were starting to watch this together, Matt, and it was one of those things where like season 7 happening, we're like, this sucks, but no one really kind of seemed to know that at the time. Yeah. And then season 8 happened, but Game of Thrones has just disappeared. And I think the big turn is, you have to comparing it to Star Wars, where you had Force Awakens, highly regarded, Last Jedi, middle, Rise of Skywalker, even less. But those movies still have kind of these diehard fans that go, it might not have been good, but Game of Thrones had that turn. Or even the most diehard fans, and this is apparent when you go to Comic-Con, because Comic-Con is the biggest kind of conglomeration of people who will support anything, and that's not really a big dig, but it kind of is. Fans at Comic-Con were booing Game of Thrones, and I think that's the biggest telltale sign of what has happened.
The writers couldn't even go to their panel because they were afraid of getting, they didn't want to hear the harsh feedback from their fans.
Exactly, but and even if The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker had that, let's say it was split 50-50. You had 50% of people like us who were checked out of Star Wars after that. Yeah. But you still had that 50%. Everyone was done with Game of Thrones after season 8, which is a really impressive thing to do.
Yeah. And it's funny because, in my opinion, season 7 is worse than season 8.
Yes.
Because at least season 8, things happen. Season 7, nothing happens in it. But like I had friends and family who were like, "Oh, season 7 is the best season ever." Season 8 happens, going off of your point, Tyler, and everyone just hates it. Everyone thinks it's bad, and it's like, did you not see this? Like, there's really no difference in the quality of writing in season 7, season 8. The only difference is that climactic events are happening in season 8, and it just makes the bad writing more obvious. But like what you said, it's shocking how many people with Star Wars, there are still diehard fans that will defend, like Rise of Skywalker or whatever. Even though the movie is just like a 2.5 hour
assault on your
ears.
Yeah, it's an offense.
Yeah, and season 8 of Game of Thrones, like I had friends and family that were like so disappointed and so disillusioned by what the show had become. It was just incredible how quickly people turned on it. Mark, do you have anything you want to weigh in on here? Like, do you have family that likes Game of Thrones? Were they high on season 8 or?
I don't even think they remember it. I mean, they watched it. I mean, that's just a testament to the quality of it. I mean, it's clear that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, they definitely shoehorned it in because they wanted to get on to they had the Star Wars deal, but that's no more. And now they have that $200 million Netflix deal. So clearly they wanted to get away from Game of Thrones and just wrap things up. I could imagine that there would be still quite a bit of a significant cultural impact that the show would have if George R. Martin had finished book 6 by like 2014 or 2015.
That's the thing.
But I think they shot themselves in the foot by like abandoning some major plot lines, like with Dorne. Like Dorne got absolutely, just a cold shoulder in the show, and I think they're probably the most captivating part in the books as of right now.
That's the thing is like D&D, or is it? Are they? They go by like D&D, right?
Yeah,
I just call it. Everyone calls them D&D.
Okay, D&D are good at adapting material. That is apparent with seasons 1 through 4. I think a lot of the blame can be placed on George R.R. Martin, which we'll touch on more kind of him and his kind of saga with Winds of Winter in a little bit. But I'm pretty sure there was like, hey, George R.R. Martin probably told D&D by the end of season 5, I will have a book out so you guys have something to keep going with. And then he didn't. And then they had to basically probably knew the ending of the show, of the books, or somewhat, and then had to piece it together. And they are not good at that.
You can see that in season 5, where it feels like they're kind of spinning their tracks a bit. Like you can tell because in season 5, they took some creative writing liberties, but for the most part, they're keeping up with what happened in Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons. But, you can tell that they were thinking that George would have it finished, the book 6 finished by then, but he didn't. And you can tell they are very disappointed by that. But I want to talk about one more thing about like the legacy of Game of Thrones, and it is that no Game of Thrones actors are famous anymore.
No, the Richard Madden.
Richard Madden is the sole exception because he's actually made a pretty good career of himself. But
if you need a recommendation, go watch The Bodyguard on Netflix. Richard Madden is phenomenal in that.
For example, like whenever a stupid Harry Potter actor gets cast in a movie, like Daniel Radcliffe with Guns Akimbo, there's like a billion like pop culture articles about, oh, Daniel Radcliffe's in a new movie or whatever. Like, do you see any of that for like Emilia Clarke or Kit Harington being cast in movies?
Well, the thing is though, like Daniel Radcliffe is a good actor, and he can have good moments. Same with Emma Watson. We've had evidence now that Sophie Turner is probably not the best actress. That could still change. Kit Harington is a little like he's doing. They're all in the Eternals movie now, but he did like Pompeii, and he was in a bunch of like he was in a movie called like MI5 or MI6.
Yeah. Richard Madden's in Eternals as well, I think.
Is he? Okay. But, like, besides, like, the established actors, like, like Sean Bean, no one is, like...
Emilia Clarke.
Yeah, well, Emilia Clarke, no one has proved that they can act outside of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson aren't, like, the greatest actors ever, but I think that the hype for them being in movies is more circulated around them having Harry Potter fame than... like their actual acting credit, their acting chops. And I just think that if people still cared about Kit Harington and Emilia Clarke, then they would still be excited for their movies.
Well, the thing is, like, also, like, Harry Potter's a much younger medium. Like, kids, like, I watched the Harry Potter movies when I was, like, 8. And you kind of, like, build them up. So all of a sudden now there's a bunch of people our age. Harry Potter movies are done. And we're like, oh, my God, Harry Potter's in a weird movie where he has guns stapled to his head. Game of Thrones, like you said, is a more mature kind of show. So you kind of get those mature audiences that are now older, and they go, why do I want to watch, like, I don't know, what's it called? What was the movie Kit Harington was in that I just mentioned? With the Pompeii, yeah. Like, why do I want to go sit and watch a Pompeii movie? It's kind of a little bit different. I don't know. That's just, I don't think it works.
I think the biggest role Emilia Clarke had after Game of Thrones was Star Wars. She was in Solo.
She's in Solo? Oh, yeah, she is.
And they set her... Did you guys see Solo?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, they set her up to be something, but I doubt anything will come of it.
No, nothing is going to come of it, I don't think.
Well, she's also in that awful movie Last Christmas, which is one of my least favorite movies I've seen in a while.
Did you see that trailer about that movie that came out this week?
No,
the trailer that came out this week?
I couldn't find it at all.
It looks so bad. She, like... Emilia Clarke has, like, a southern accent.
Yeah.
It's really...
It's just
and the trailer is like the whole movie. It's just a mess.
But I feel like going back, we should probably talk about George R.R. Martin a little bit and kind of who he is
and
now
his love life.
In his love life, who he is as a person. kind of what his like persona now is as a writer. It's weird. Like Matt.
Can I just cover 2 more show topics?
Yes, go.
Before
Matt,
this is why
Matt
I just
planned
have,
for this. This is a
yes.
big monumental.
So I just have 2 very brief talking points. When did you turn on Game of Thrones?
Okay, Matt and I feel like we have the same moment. It's when the set blows up.
Yeah. Okay. So I turned on Game of Thrones during the season 6 finale, specifically the explosion of the Sept.
Yep.
Scene, because season 6 had a lot of build up to like Tyrell and High Sparrow plot lines that all became irrelevant with them all dying in a wildfire explosion. And it's disappointing because the whole season's building up to like these grand schemes, and the writers found a way out of creating more depth by just killing off the characters that were scheming. And I usually don't get angry very often, but when I hear that Sept music,
yep,
you know, like that, like when during the montage, that
Light of the Seven.
Playing, yeah, I hate that theme. I can't listen to it. It just gets me angry.
Well, it's like an 8-minute theme too.
Yeah,
because it's that slow, like it's a well-directed episode.
Yeah,
it's just narratively, it's nuking the entire thematic, like nuking all the themes of Game of Thrones, that mystery, that intrigue, and going, we don't know what to do with this. Let's blow it up.
Yeah.
And
also, there's no Clegane Bowl.
What do you mean? There was Clegane Bowl.
There is.
No. Isn't the Clegane Bowl is when Cersei's champion is the Mountain, and then the Sparrows.
Oh yeah.
Champion is the Gravedigger, aka the Hound.
Well, that's a theory.
Well, that's a theory. Yeah,
no,
that's not like
that's truth.
That would never. Yeah.
But when did you guys turn on Game of Thrones?
I stayed hopeful till season 8, episode 3.
Really, you're into
I really held out. I mean, when the wall went down by the dragon, I was like, wait, so if Jon Snow never went there, this would have never happened? The logic where he's like, we gotta stop the bad guys. And then the whole reason the bad guys beat us is because Jon Snow is an idiot.
You record. Oh yeah, it is recording. Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah. With the second, like what was it, The Long Night? That was the episode?
Which one? Where the episode?
Yeah, it's with the Battle of Winterfell.
Yeah. That's a terribly directed episode, by the way. I just want to throw that up there. I hate that episode.
When the cavalry went in, like they were going to go without their flaming Arcs or whatever, and then Melisandre comes in, and then they charge. It's like, oh god.
Like in Melisandre just had the ability to light every single sword on fire for no reason at all.
Also because she somehow bypassed the entire army of the dead.
Don't you love how every main character are the only few people surviving, and there's a point where Samwell Tarly is buried underneath whites that are stabbing him, and then Jon Snow looks at him and just rocks away, but he's fine. Don't you love that? Don't you like how it's too dark?
The whites kind of forgot to kill Samwell Tarly.
Yeah. I checked out a Game of Thrones in the Sept episode because that was very much kind of representative of where the show is trending, where it's going away from that kind of that intrigue and those kind of character moments that were prevalent in seasons 1 through 5 sort of, and then it just blows it up. And I think that's a really kind of betrayal to how the show is, but it's also weird because the entire season you're setting up intrigue with the Tyrells and with oh my god, I can't remember, the High Sparrow. You're setting up intrigue and you're like, who are these people, what's gonna happen? And then it's never answered. They all just get blown up. That's about the same intelligence that the episode has.
Which is too bad because that episode also has like a really great scene where it's like the Tower of Joy scene, and then
my god,
and it cuts to. I mean, it's like the most crowd pleasing, like the most obvious theory that everyone knows, but like it was still very well executed and still kind of satisfying because like it was very well done because Miguel Sapochnik, who directs some of the best episodes of the later seasons, is just excellent.
It does have that one.
It was a good the Tower of Joy fever dream in book 1 is like one of my favorites. I think it's probably my favorite passage in the whole series. And I think the show did a really good job of translating that because, like in the book, they're like on horseback, and there's it's like Sir Gerald Hightower, Sir Willem
Wentz, and Sir Arthur Dane,
and Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning, who is just one of my favorite characters like ever. So yeah, I think they did that scene justice.
I do think though, like there is a part in that Sept episode that I really like, and it's when Tommen kills himself. I really like the framing of that shot. I really just kind of like how we cut to him, and then it frames on the window, and he just walks and falls off. Kind of really like It's a little dark, but that's the point. Kind of really
Did you
dug
like
it.
the scene where Grandmaster Faisal decides to follow this little child down to like the crypts for no reason,
And they get
then
stabbed
he
to
gets
death.
suspicious after.
Yeah. Do you like how Lancel gets stabbed once in like the stomach and is writhing in pain for like 8 minutes and then dies?
They give him the opportunity to completely foil Cersei's plan too. Like he was literally 1 second away from blowing out the candle that would have um made the sept explode, but they decided to let him live for that long for dramatic effect.
I feel like it's just kind of like a giant FU to the morality with the it's a weird mess, but no, I was done after that. And even with like what comes first, is the Battle of the Bastards before that or after that? It's after that.
That's after. No,
before.
That's before. Yeah.
After that I was done, and I think season 7 then follows that trend where it's nonsense and nothing happens, and then even episode or season 8 just rushed. Season 8 should not have been 5 episodes, 6 episodes.
It should have been 6 seasons.
It was 6 episodes because season 7 was 7 and season 8 was 6.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's just like that season 6 turn is just kind of what ruins the rest of the show.
And HBO gave D&D an out. Like they said, you don't have to keep writing episodes anymore if you don't want to. But they wanted to have their names attached to the whole thing and keep making the money from it. But then there's a really terrible season 8 documentary from HBO that's totally pointless and doesn't explain anything. But there's like one great scene where they're doing the writers table. And it's like
I've seen that.
What?
I've seen
all the
that.
actors are acting out their scenes, and like as like each character dies in like the most lamest fashion possible, like the actor just goes like sits back and is just like, well, that's
like,
it.
This is it. Yeah, that's my run.
Yeah, the guy who played Varys, he was very visibly distraught.
Jon Snow was
through the
distraught during the
screenplay.
Daenerys scene. He was like, "This is terrible."
Yeah, this is awful. No, I think the show is just like a misfire after misfire once season 6 happens. Just narratively, written wise, it has a few good directing scene episodes, but other than that, it's just all over the place. It's not good.
Yeah. So let's wrap up the Game of Thrones section. Do you think Game of Thrones is tarnished forever, or do you think this is like a rewatchable series?
Tarnished forever.
People,
the first 4 seasons are rewatchable.
Yeah. But doesn't it fall into that kind of thing of like the Dexter realm where no one likes the Dexter ending, but the first like 3 or 4 seasons of Dexter are good? Like,
yeah, I've seen Dexter. I think the first like 5 seasons are actually pretty good.
Okay.
But like I said, when I watch those older seasons, like I don't think of like the finale really.
Yeah.
Like I still like those seasons as they are. Like I've only watched I started watching season 1 like last year. Just randomly, and it's weird because I don't see the characters in season 1.
Yeah,
I don't see them as their characters in season 8. Like season 7 and 8 specifically, kind of season 6 as well, kind of feel like fan fiction in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like these characters like Daenerys season 1 kind of exist in this nebulous realm of never really having a conclusion in my head because I don't see the two characters.
What kind of falls under that kind of the whole if there's a really bad remake of a movie, it doesn't necessarily tarnish the original movie.
Yeah.
Like if you think like a really good example of this is like the Total Recall remake with Colin Farrell. It's not a great movie in the slightest. It's actually really terrible. But the original Total Recall is really fun.
Yeah.
But just because there's that really bad version of Total Recall doesn't make the first version any less good. And I think I kind of like, I know it's the same show with Game of Thrones, but I kind of separate Game of Thrones into 2 parts like you do. You have the stuff with the books and then the stuff that's after. And the stuff that after feels like, you're right, it's its own thing, and I can separate between the 2.
I kind of do the same thing. Like, I don't really have a problem because with making my own canon for things. So, like with Aliens is one of my favorite movies of all time, and Alien 3 is terrible, and it completely it kills off some of the best characters in Aliens, like off screen, and it's the lamest thing ever. But like when I watch Aliens, like I say like, oh well, that's where the story ends in my head.
Yeah.
So like I don't really have a problem with like just ignoring certain movies that I don't like, or books or TV show plots that I don't like because like I don't know if it was bad, and I can watch Aliens and think, oh, Corporal Hicks is just fine.
Yeah,
like, he didn't die off screen in the worst way possible.
No,
cool.
I completely agree. And I think it's also a really good idea to probably separate the 2 because does feel like this massive loss of interest and passion with the show creators.
Yeah.
Because like Mark said earlier, they were very apparent on going on separate things. Like they got the Star Wars deal. They have their Confederates show. Is that ever going to come out?
No, that's scrapped.
That's scrapped.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. And they're writing a Cthulhu movie.
Why not? I mean, sure, but
Sure.
So they had all those things, and they very clearly started to try to distance themselves and get it over with. Even though the show got more popular, like not the Game of Thrones kind of, I feel like, license or was really, really at its peak. What, season 5, season 6? But the show itself got really like even more popular, season 7, season 8. I feel like they could have justified pushing those to 10 episodes each, fleshing out the ending, fleshing out the characters and their endings, and then the show would have been a little bit better. But instead, they rushed it and they checked out early. And I think, I don't know, I can separate the two.
Yeah.
Regardless of how bad the ending is.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's. I tried rewatching the series after I finished the book series, and this first 4 seasons are great, but it just leaves like that the season 8 just left such a bad taste in my mouth, and it was just like too hard to think like, oh, these characters will never be, you'll see the fruition of what they can, they're supposed to be, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
One other point I wanted to make was Game of Thrones, like, memorabilia. Like, I think there's like a direct correlation between the rise of Funko Pops and like the popularity of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You're saying
you saw those things
that Game of Thrones ruined pop culture forever.
Yeah, like after season 6, there was like everywhere. It was like I Drink and I Know Things was on everything.
That's the worst.
I hate that so
speaking
much.
Speaking of like Faith of the Seven, the song getting me angry, that triggers me so much. I Drink and I Know Things. So there's so many just like dudes that go to the bar to watch Game of Thrones. They're like, I drink and I know things too.
Yeah.
It was so awesome when Cersei blew up the Saps because it was an explosion.
Matt's very jaded, if you can't tell.
You go into New Break Comics and it's just like an assault on the eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I think it's one of those shows that kind of transcended its own genre. I mean, again, comparing it to Star Wars. Star Wars is a science fiction fantasy show with lightsabers and fighting and stuff, but it's kind of transcended that and become kind of a staple of popular culture. And I think Game of Thrones did that for a while, even though it's not the most accessible show, which I think is commendable. Same with Harry Potter. Kind of those shows kind of do, but now it's completely. I don't even know if Newberry Comics has a Game of Thrones section anymore.
Probably not
for anything.
I remember there'd be like 2 like whole tables in the front dedicated to Game of Thrones stuff.
Yep.
And I don't think that's there's no way that is there anymore, because going back to Harry Potter, like there's still giant Harry Potter tables, and that series ended 8 years ago, and still people love that. But I don't see Game of Thrones as really making that much of a comeback, unless once the winter comes out, it'll get a spike.
I feel like we should talk about that. I don't know if it'll get as big of a spike as we think. I think people are more checked out of Game of Thrones than we may realize.
Yeah.
Winds of Winter. Okay. Should we go transition to the Winds of Winter, George
R.
R. Martin
let's
stuff?
transition.
Okay. Yeah. When George R. Martin, I don't like his persona he's adopted now of the kind of like the weird tee-hee, I'll get the book out. Oh, don't be mad at me kind of thing. It's weird. And it's a weird thing to kind of adopt. And listen, we're not besmirching authors for taking a while to kind of create a good craft, but I think it's the issue with how he's kind of adopted that taking a while mentality, where one of the things that annoyed me the most was that line where he's like lock me in a room if I don't finish it by the time quarantine is over, or whatever the thing he said was. And it's
by July 2020, if I don't have the Winds of Winter in my hands for Worldcon, then you imprison me on my shack in New Zealand.
Dude, just write the book. No one really cares about you're tee-hee, maybe it'll come out. Maybe
nothing you can do is worse than the season 8 finale.
Yeah,
everything by comparison is better.
Yeah, if you throw out whatever you have now, it's better than what we got.
The red comic could kill everyone, and I'd be more satisfied with that ending than I was with Game of Thrones season 8 ending. But one of my talking points is Adapted Dragons was published in 2011.
2011? It was 9 years ago?
Yeah. What do you think is taking him so long to write this book? Because I don't know the exact dates, but Game of Thrones, A Clash of Kings, and Summer Swords are all written and published, I think, within about an 8-year time span. And it's been 9 years between Death of Dragons and Winds of Winter. And we've never read an official chapter from Winds of Winter. Every sample chapter has been from Dance of Dragons that was scrapped because the book was too long. What do you think is taking so long?
It just got carried away from him. Just all the books 4 and 5 introduce so much. I mean, you don't really see Dorne until book 4.
Yeah.
And that what's going on there is gonna just alter the course of the entire story. And Winds of Winter, you guys know this. It's the follow-up to 2 books at the same time. Yeah. And there's just so much you need to wrap up, and so many things that you need to just keep track of. I think he said he had maps all over the place and histories and everything that he made, just to keep track of where things are. And the Westeros is huge, and you got characters sailing on the seas and characters in Essos.
Yeah.
Essos.
And South
so much. Yeah. Sothorios and Althos. Lost my train of thought. But yeah, there's just so much to keep track of, and I think that's just what's taken him so long. I think he's just overwhelmed, and he's been overwhelmed. And then in 2016, I'm pretty sure he had most of the book done, and then he just rewrote the whole thing because he wasn't happy because he's such a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like a rising. Well, Matt, you know more about kind of him as a person, his ideologies, kind of his way of thinking. Is he someone who kind of easily becomes overwhelmed by stuff? Because the rise in popularity of the Game of Thrones show, I feel would throw a lot of pressure under an author to kind of, I have to finish this and I have to make it the best it can possibly be because all the eyes are on me now. But now I feels like he kind of sunk away from that pressure and took too long to write it, and that no one really cares about Game of Thrones anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe that's Maybe that's purposeful. Maybe he's if I wait until the show's over, people won't care as much, and I won't have as much pressure.
So between A Feast for Crows and Death of Dragons was 6 years or something, and that's because there was this thing called the Myronese Knot, which was George R. R. Martin trying to figure out the Myronese plot.
Oh, right.
Yep.
And that took him years and years and years to think through and to figure out. And that's so he definitely overthinks things and wants everything to be perfect. And now that was just one plot that took him years and years to figure out. And now he has Winds of Winter, which is a combination of two books worth of plots all put into one. And so I think that he overwrote it. And there are way too many things that he won't be able to wrap up in 2 books because you have the plots that have been going along since Game of Thrones, which is the Bran plot, the Jon plot, the Daenerys plot, and then you have plots introduced in Feast for Crows and Death of Dragons, like the Citadel, the Ironborn plots, the several Ironborn plots, the Maester's plot, the Dornish plots. There's 3 Dornish plots going on.
Grand Northern Conspiracy.
The Northern Conspiracy, or several Northern Conspiracies. Several wildling insurgent groups. The 3,000 mercenaries in Essos.
Golden Company.
The Golden Company, the Second Sons, the
Vagon.
Yeah, the Tattered Prince, all of them. Then you have Aegon landing. And during the whole storm, during that plot, so considering how we've made a lot of progress in the first 5 books, a ton has happened since book 1. Ton of stuff has happened, but so much more still needs to happen. The book is only getting more complex, and to think that he can wrap that up in a satisfying way in 2 books. Because do you see Daenerys landing in Westeros?
Not until the end of this book. Not until the end of Winds of Winter.
Is her invasion plot and the White Walker plot and whatever else is introduced and still not paid off in book 6 going to reach a satisfying conclusion in just 1 book, Regime of Spring?
Well, that's the thing is no, I don't know. One, how old is George R. Martin?
He is 71.
This is that really touchy subject where he has now taken 9 years to write a book. He is a man who we know, and I'll say this lightly, who's probably not in the best of health.
He said in a blog post recently that for an overweight old guy, he's doing pretty well. He says he feels good. Yeah,
well, that's good, but he's also, let's say Winds of Winter comes out in a year or 2. So let's say put it at 2022.
Yeah.
That's 11 years.
Let's be generous.
Let's be generous. 2022. Now he has. Let's hope he tries to expand it, but he's kind of funneling that close a little bit. He still has to. So we're what? Let's say 5 years at a bare minimum to write a Dream of Spring.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 2027 could be, and if you're looking at a realistic, you're looking at 2030.
Yeah.
He's gonna be in his 80s.
Yes.
And say that's not wrapped up. Are we now having an 80-year-old George R.R. Martin spending another 8 years, right? It's like, doesn't seem logically feasible that this series gets finished.
Yeah, he better donate his proceeds for Winds of Winter to stem cell research if he wants to make it that far.
But
I think Winds of Winter is the one where he has to figure everything out, and that's why it's taking so long. I feel like he's gonna write Dream of Spring fairly quickly, like maybe in 4 years, hopefully.
Yeah.
And I think he's not gonna have enough time, and he's gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna be doing A Time for Wolves as the 8th book. And he's going to need another book to do it.
I'm pretty certain there will end up being 8 books. Because there's no way that they can get all these plots done in just 2 books.
But what if he pulls like a D&D and just like mercilessly start killing off characters?
I mean, that's the thing.
He's not.
He does do that. Like, the Red Wedding
not to the capacity.
completely destroyed a whole plot line in one chapter. But it made the show more. It made the series more complex.
Yeah.
At the same time.
But the SEP doesn't make it. The SEP blowing up. Say that's a key point that George R. Martin has that D&D took. I don't see it being any better than. I still see it being aggravating. If he kills the same characters, does the same thing, I still see it being a kind of a down point to the books. I don't like, besides the Red Wedding, but the Red Wedding had kind of like other kind of stuff going on. I don't see that mass execution of characters as that interesting. I think it's just a way to clean up a little bit. But that's just me.
What I think is going to happen, I think like some of the substitutes that the show used was, Viserion brings down the wall in season 7. I think that's a sub for Euron bringing it down with the Horn of Winter. I think that's sort of like, it's going to come down. It's just in a different way because Euron is going into Old Town, and that's where Samwell Tarly is, and it's like pretty much confirmed that he has that broken horn that Jon had at the Fist of the First. The Giant's horn, and I think he's gonna get it. I mean, he's collecting all these artifacts. I mean, it's like it feels pretty evident that Euron is he's gonna know what it is. He's gonna take it, and he's gonna march on the wall, and maybe it's gonna be like Jon Snow, because like nobody knows Euron's coming.
No,
like he's coming and he's gonna just absolutely destroy everybody, and
no one knows how powerful he is either. Like even
he's got Valyrian steel, Valyrian steel armor.
Yeah,
and I think what I love about George is you get these sort of sleeper lines where it's like something's mentioned offhand that you don't really think much of, but then like in later books, this big thing happens, and then you look back and there's like this tiny bit of foreshadowing. In one of the books, I think it was maybe book 4 or 5, some character in it was not a main character, it was like some offhand character mentions that on Claw Isle, the people who live there have a Valyrian steel dagger and a Kraken summoning horn. I feel like that's he added that in for some reason. I feel like that's going to play some sort of role.
There's a Preston Jacobs theory that's it's pretty good. It's I think it's called Battle of Blood or something, and he talks about how like they're churning water with blood to try to summon Krakens or something, and then because they're really overwhelmed, the Ironborn are really overwhelmed by the oncoming Red Wine fleet. Like the Red Wine fleet is much larger fleet than the Ironborn fleet, and so he's theorizing that they're gonna summon Krakens to and then using Aeron's like telepathy to help with it or something.
Yeah,
that's really cool, but that's also a ton of new stuff. And how are they gonna then that's a lot.
Because we barely know anything about the Citadel right now. Like this is it. Like this battle won't be wrapping up plots from earlier on. It's gonna be introducing more questions.
Yeah.
Because we know we even heard from Samwell for like 15 years when you think about it.
Oh my god.
And in Citadel in Old Town you also have there's a lot of mystery around the high towers, and they're in the high towers on that oily black stone that is always mentioned. And then you have Jack and Hagar going for the death of dragons in the crypt. And you got all this going on. And then you got Archmaester Marwyn and with the glass candles.
Yeah.
And
You have
There's
one of
just so much
Oberyn's
going
bastard
on.
daughters there. Who knows what she's doing?
Yeah, right.
I feel like there's a point where we're kind of making here where it's like George R.R. Martin has a lot to juggle with. Clearly, we've just laid all that out. And I think like an issue with mine isn't necessarily the fact that it's taking a while. It's the persona that he's adopted. If he had just come out and said, I have so much to do in this book, it is really hard to kind of wrangle everything. It's going to take a while. Okay, perfect. If he had come up, his updates are like, hey, I'm making progress like he did. He's like, I got a few chapters done like last week and blah, blah, blah. Perfect. But it's this whole like, oh man, if I don't have it finished, and it's kind of like that fun element with it. It's like, dude, we know you have a lot, but just kind of like say it. Like you don't have to like play coy, because you're losing like interest. You're losing fans doing that.
I've said this before, but I think that although Game of Thrones was most popular in season 8, like it had the most viewership season 8, the most hype around the show was season 6 because we were kind of delving into unknown territory. So I think the most money you probably could have made out of Winds of Winter was the release between season 5 and 6, because it's like, read the book before the season comes out or whatever, because no one knew what was going to happen because we were in completely foreign territory at this point. So that was probably the most hyped for the book it probably could have been. In 2016, he had a blog post talking about how he thought he was going to have it done in 2016 before the new season came out, and he was very apologetic because he tried really hard to make it, but he just couldn't, and that he's going to try for later on in the year. And I felt bad for him at the time because it's like, he wants to make this as good as possible, and he's probably under a lot of pressure. But that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
How do you confuse 1 year of work with 5 years of work? I don't understand how that's possible. And there's also this like tone deafness in his blog post, because I remember I think a year ago he was saying on his blog, he's like, I have a big announcement to announce. Everyone's like, this is gonna be What's the Winner, and it's a wild cards book that he didn't even write, like no one cares. And it's just funny because I think he got a lot of backlash for that too, because he's kind of teasing us in a way. I don't guys have any comments,
but it's not like there's a certain point where teasing an audience and teasing fans, there's a certain line where you tease them, but you actually have to reveal something. And what George R. R. Martin keeps doing is teasing us, but going like, it's like teasing us and then taking it away. And it's like, and then eventually you just kind of become tired of it. And I think that's what's happening with the post Game of Thrones show, and what probably happened when you kind of get to season 8 is the fans of the books, because a lot of people now have read the books. Not as many people are as like in-depth fans, like I think you and Mark are. They're probably more like me, where I've read it once, I thought they're really good, and then that's really like, maybe I'll reread them once Winds of Winter comes out and kind of stuff like that. But now it's just like that interest is just gone. And with the fall of season 8, Game of Thrones interest, I feel like, is at an all-time low. I do not like, I'll buy Winds of Winter, clearly. But it's also one of those things where it's like, if I don't, I'm not like staying out at midnight to get the book now. I'll go get it, but I'm not like in any rush. It's because I also know after Winds of Winter comes out, guess what? Probably not going to get another book for a while. And it's kind of just...
I'm not going to rush through it when I get it, because there's no point. Like, why would I rush through it? I'm going to read it as slowly as possible.
Like, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, okay, I finished it in like, let's say 3 months. I took my real slow time. It's like, well, great. Now let's say it comes out in 2022. I'm like 24, 25. Great. Can't wait for another 10 years to be my mid-30s for...
That's what I've accepted, that we'll all be probably in our 30s by the time King of Spring comes out, if it comes out.
And I feel like that's like, boom. We started this in high school. I don't know how much my interest will be in my mid-30s at Game of Thrones. So, I don't know. That's just kind of where I stand on the Game of Thrones as a whole.
Do you guys have any plot lines that you're particularly excited for in Winds of Winter? Like, what's you're most excited for?
I have so many. I love the Ironborn. I'm a real big fan of the Ironborn. And I think I'm mostly interested in what Euron's going to do. His speech in A Feast for Crows, I just absolutely love it, where he's like, when men see my sails, they pray. That whole thing he does. And then like the guy blows the hell horn. I was like, oh man, when I read that, I was just like, this is the best book ever. So I'm really excited to see what Euron does. I'm pretty sure he's going to bring down the wall. I really want to see the Horn of Winter come into play. I'm also really interested in what Victarion is going to do, because someone pointed this out to me. I read it in like some Reddit comment, and it was.
There was a phase last summer where every 5 minutes, Mark would be screenshotting a Reddit theory for us to read. And I go, well, this is wrong because of this. And he goes, yeah, but it's cool.
Yeah, but you're not. It's not. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, the last Victorian chapter where I forget what happens to his arm. Like why he needs to have like that fire
he
priest.
gets a cut by Sir something Sari during the battle.
Oh right.
Fingers, yeah, and then these are crows.
So he gets that volcano cannon arm or whatever.
Yeah, from Morocco.
Yeah. He goes in. That thing happens, and when it comes out, it's like first person, and then when it comes out of it, it switches to third person.
Oh.
Out of no, it's weird.
Look at you go, Mark. Wow.
Mark. Hey, I didn't figure this out. Someone pointed this out to me. But if you read the last Victorian chapter, after that thing happens to him, it's not a POV chapter anymore. It's like a narrator's point of view of what happened to Victorian. Like, he walked out of the cabin and his arm wasn't the same. And, he's going to Daenerys and he's got the Hellhorn. I mean, we assume he's going to blow it. So that's going to be really interesting.
Well, he has slaves that are going to blow it.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm also.
If he blows it, he could die.
Yeah, right. He'll get his insides cooked. I really want to know where the fuck is Howland Reed, and is he the High Sparrow? Because he's the guy who has the most important piece of information in all of Westeros. Because he knows Jon's parents. Whose Jon's parents were.
If it is Jon up in the Tower of Joy.
That's right.
Ooh. Look at that.
Wow.
There you go.
I want to see what Lady Stoneheart is up to. I really am excited to see what Prince Doran is up to with the Dornish master plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
And who I genuinely fear is Patchface. That kid is gonna just kill everybody because everything he predicted the Red Wedding and the death of the Red Wedding, and then what else did he predict? Something else, and then. In book 5, you see him again in Dance of Dragons, and he's like, dead things in the water, dead things on land. And he's like talking about the Hard Home, which hasn't happened yet. And so I feel like something's going to happen. And also I think Euron, maybe he's going to resurrect, or bring up Krakens. But what if he brings up the physical manifestation of the drowned god or something? That could be
giant.
Yeah.
Like a giant of some sort, something crazy. Because there's crazy monsters. And if you read The World of Ice and Fire, and I'm sure you know this, Matt, they're on the Iron Isles. There's the gigantic skeleton of the sea serpent, Naga's bones. And so there's crazy, crazy beasts out there. And I'm really excited to see that. What else? I got Obsidian Candles and Quaithe. What the heck she's up to. I want to.
And is she a Sharpdane?
Yeah, Ashardin, and then Phaegon.
I know her.
Phaegon, and if Illyrio has Blackfire, I really want to know that. I want to know more about what Euron saw in Old Valyria, because he got he got the armor, and then he got the what else did he get? He got the Hellhorn, right?
Yeah, that's what we know of at least.
Maybe he has Bright Roar. Who knows?
Yeah.
How much of this do you think realistically gets answered, though?
A few of them, hopefully.
Well, now I feel like we're at the point where a lot of that feels more kind of fantastical than what Game of Thrones is as a whole. I feel like a lot of this stuff is just teasing, and we're gonna still focus on the character elements more than the whole raising krakens and giant drowned gods and the statue in what's it called? Bravos, coming to life.
The Titan of Bravos.
The
Titan of Bravos, yeah. I feel like a lot of this just doesn't get answered.
Yeah, well, you clearly don't know anything about Game of Thrones. So
I don't.
Stop.
I need to know. The last thing I want to say is I want to know what the hell the Faceless Men are up to, and are they trying to kill Daenerys' dragons?
Honestly, this might be a hot take, but I thought Arya's story and the Faceless Men stuff and Hysa Cross was pretty weak.
I just didn't I don't like Arya Stark as a character. Matt and I are in the same boat as this one. I don't.
I like her. I mean, I like the book Arya. I just show Arya.
How many chapters does she have in Feast for Crows?
Oh, he's infinite. He's in the Clash of Kings. He has a chapter every other chapter in the beginning.
Yeah.
He's just riding around in the Riverlands doing nothing.
Can I? All right, I want to throw out my one thing plot line. I'm curious to see how George handles the resurrection of John. Whether it's actually like if we ever get like John back truly, or
Yeah.
kind of what happens. Is he in Ghost? Is someone gonna warg into his body? I'm very interested to see how that's handled, because the show, it's very one of the biggest crimes I feel like the show commits is resurrecting John and then no one mentioning the fact that he was resurrected. No
Yeah.
one bringing up the fact that he deserted the Night's Watch. That is just glossed over. No one talks about it, but I will be prevalent in the book because religion is a heavy aspect in the book.
Yeah.
And I'm so curious about how they handle that.
You know, it was wasted potential. Remember when everyone was theorizing that Stannis survived the Battle of Winterfell?
But nope.
Yeah, no, he was
It's
just
the Battle of Ice. It's the Battle of Ice,
Oh my
actually.
Yeah, and he's just dead. Brienne killed him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I guess my most anticipated plot lines are the Battle of Winterfell between the Boltons and Stannis and the Ironborn in the north. I'm really excited for that. I'm excited for Aegon's story. I really like all the Martell stuff. I'm so excited for what Arianne does later on, because I think she'll probably be making it to the end. I would be surprised if she didn't. Quentin is alive.
Quentin's alive. That's a good. I like that theory a lot.
And yeah, the Ironborn stuff. Everything is interesting, and also Jaime's my favorite character. So anything that he does, I'm excited for.
Yeah.
To see.
So the last thing we hear about Jaime is that him and Brienne are
he
off
just runs
somewhere.
into Brienne out because he's camping in the Riverlands.
Yeah, right.
There's such a great scene in Peace of Crows where he's talking to Edmund Tully, and he's trying to get information out of him, and then he's like taking a bath or whatever, and then he, after he's done talking to him, he's like, he gets his bard to come in, and he goes play a song for Lord Tully. I think you know the one, and it's Reigns of Castamere.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Jaime's so great. It's like they murdered him in the show.
Well, he's pretty good in the show up until the end.
Well, I mean, yeah. Remember season 3, that really amazing moment in season 3 where he's in the bathhouse?
Yeah, and he's like, it's the humanizing of this.
And he's saying that he killed the Mad King because he knew that he was going to be murdering millions of people in King's Landing with the wildfire explosion. And then season 8, he has a scene with Tyrion where he's like, so I never much cared for the common folk. It's like, no,
you idiot.
3.
Did you watch the old show? And then he dies by a rock.
Yeah. He just loves Cersei so much.
He just loves Cersei. Game of Thrones was a show of ending of wasted potential. That's, I feel like, where we can kind of sum it up. Game of Thrones is a study of wasted potential.
Yeah.
How about
I think Jamie does. I'm just excited to see.
I think in Winds of Winter, I think it's pretty easy to predict how Daenerys's plotline is going to go. I mean, I feel like what happens in season 5 and season 6, or maybe just season 6, is that she's just going to try and win over the Dothraki, right? Like, that's what she's just going to do.
That'd be so lame because that was Game of Thrones, basically.
Yeah, I know, but like the last thing you see is like she has that really weird chapter. She's like sick to her stomach, and like
the more she drank, the more she
cat. And then that was a weird chapter. I think that was like the last chapter.
You just imagine like 65-year-old George R. Martin writing about like a 16-year-old girl to be mad. He's like,
yes.
Yeah.
What kind of house does he live in? Do we know?
He lives in New Mexico.
Does he have I feel like I always picture him like living in like a one-room bedroom, a one-room like apartment, just like huddled over like a really bad desk.
There's no AC in there, so he's just sweating.
He's like on a typewriter.
But he doesn't type, but he types on like that old like thingy or whatever. What does he type on, Matt?
He types on a computer. I
thought
oh, really?
For a while I thought he typed on like that like really old computer kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a rumor, but like someone like corrected me once.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It is very interesting. Game of Thrones,
because his wife always reads it first, and he's like, this is the guy I married.
Yeah, this is him. Can't wait to describe a 13-year-old. Yay. So yeah, that's.
But I mean, there's like you said, there's so much that they have to pay off that he's like set up, and like there's no like it has to be a book 8. I couldn't see there. Do you see this? Do you see A Song of Ice and Fire ending happily? Like, or you just see like
for the characters or for us?
Well, I mean, do you like I feel like if the characters have happy endings, you'll be happy.
I feel like it's not true to the book. I feel like happy endings in this kind of world that's established are not. Well, it's more. It feels like more of like bittersweet endings rather than like full-fledged happy ending.
Yeah.
Isn't George gonna go like the scouring of the Shire sort of route? Didn't he
What?
say?
Can you explain that?
Like at the end of Lord of the Rings, like with the destruction of the Shire or whatever.
Yeah.
Like because that's not in the movies, it's in the books. It's like a bittersweet ending. Like Sauron is defeated, but like the Shire is in shambles.
Yeah.
Sort of.
That's how I kind of think that's how it'll go.
Yeah, I think He says he's gonna have basically like a scouring of the Shire, if I'm not mistaken. I've heard that somewhere. One other plot line that I want to ask you guys is, how do you think the Brynden Rivers Bran situation is gonna go? Do you think the Night King is still, or like the what? There's no Night King. I mean, the other's gonna kill Brynden Rivers, or
well,
I think. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I this is like because Matt, you'll have a much more in depth answer, and I'll do my quick show normie. Well, if they somehow got the ending for George R.R. Martin, the ending is somehow Bran ends up on the throne. If that's the ending, I like to think there'd be a more intriguing element on how maybe he wargs into someone and then is controlling like that. I don't think the ending they have where Bran literally ends up on the throne and he's the king is how the book's gonna end. I feel like George saw that and went, no, like I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It'd be intriguing.
Well, I mean, Bran is also not like the actor, Sir Isaac, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Like post season 4, he played Bran like this.
Yeah.
I mean, he could potentially make Bran more of a dynamic character than.
Yeah. Just staring.
Yeah.
In his face. Yeah. Oh. No, I don't know. What were you gonna say, Matt? Before I very intelligently interrupted you.
I think that it could reach a similar conclusion, but I think there'd be more build up to it. Like I could see Windsweater ending with that, with Bran's character arc, and Windsweater ending with the Night King attack or something.
Yeah.
But like I think he's gonna spend more time with Brynden Rivers. He's gonna have more time traveling stuff. I don't think there will be any like reversing time that's currently happening. I think they'll be going like just like watching, like how they did in the show, kind of when they're just like kind of watching scenes unfold from the past. So yeah, I think it will probably follow the same thing, because Hodor sounds so much like Hold the Door. Like can't forget about that.
Well, that's a point that I'm pretty sure
enough to think of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure George confirmed that's like his thing. Yeah, it's gonna be a point.
So
yeah,
that's gonna happen.
Is there any characters like did George say we're gonna see the Land of Always Winter in book 6?
Yes, he did. He said we're gonna go farther north than ever before.
Yes, I'm so excited about that.
Yeah. So that'll either be Bran.
Who's gonna go?
I guess. What?
Who's gonna be in the Land of Always Winter? Is it gonna be Bran and?
No, we don't know.
No one knows. That's the thing.
Wait,
George won't write the book.
Bran is in the cave, right? At the end of book 6, book 5, right? I can't remember. Where's Bran?
Yeah, at the end of book 5, he's in the cave.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah.
But he has like 2 chapters in A Dance with Dragons. Do you remember? Like he literally has 2 chapters at the beginning, and you don't hear from him for the rest of the book.
My memory's a little hazy about that. I just remember John's like
he gets picked
Jon
up
Snow's dead
by the
Inkletter.
Yeah,
he gets picked up by
Cold
Benjen
Hands.
Stark, or Cold Hands. Yeah. He's probably Benjen Stark. And then he gets taken to the cave, and then they give him like weird paste to eat, and that's kind of like where his story ends. He has only a couple like 20-30 pages of content in that whole book.
Is the paste, is that the final chapter? Because that's a theory that he ate Jojen.
Yeah, I've heard that theory.
Yeah, that he ate Jojen, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. Also, you forgot the best storyline, Sir Davos.
He's going to Skagos.
He's going to Skagos.
Yeah.
He's going to find Rickon.
Yeah, to fight the cannibals and the unicorns.
Oh my God.
I'm so excited. I totally forgot about that. Oh, and also, Davos was in book 5. He was where's that place with the fishing port? Who's like the like the North Remember speech from that guy? Like my son died at the Red Wedding.
The White Harbor.
Yes, White Harbor. Oh, that was awesome. I can't wait to see where Davos goes, and
because like all the stupid phrases still there, and he's like I dine with Rhaegar and I chat with whoever, but the North Remembers because he killed his son at the.
My son is home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was such an epic speech. Oh,
that's
man.
great.
What's going on in the Eyrie? What's going on over there?
Littlefinger is taking. Remember, they're trying to get Sansa Mary to harry the heir.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and then
there's so many
Robin
things.
is still there, and they're gonna try to kill him. Littlefinger's so great.
There's a lot. Yeah, Littlefinger is that's the best.
He's with
Matt,
Littlefinger. All right.
Matt, do you have any more talking points, Matt?
One more talking point, and this is
Okay.
going to be the wrap up. So we've complained a lot about Game of Thrones in general. Is the journey worth the destination?
Yes.
If it's different than the show, yes.
Yeah, but like, do you regret spending so much time with Game of Thrones?
No,
knowing that it ended so poorly.
Well, I mean, again, I think the books are really good.
Yeah.
From the book perspective, these were all really great reads. George R. Martin has a very distinct and palpable writing style, despite the length of the books and despite how dense the chapters and the word choice can be. There's something like very like elegant, but also kind of like hefty about the way George R. Martin writes. And I think from the book perspective, yes, it's worth everything we've gotten. From the show, it's a little like seasons 1 through 4 and like half of 5 and parts of 6, and then no. And then after that, it kind of crumbles.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think the show gave me the context that I needed to like be able to like visualize the books very well. I felt like watching the show before I read the books really, improved my reading experience.
Made you a normie.
Yeah, you made me a normie. Loser.
No, because there's like George just throws you right into it in book 1, and he puts you in like right after like the 20 years after the biggest event in all of Westerosi history happens, with the death of Rhaegar, and Robert's rebellion, and so like watching that on the show, it was so hard to like understand what was going on, and like reading in the books would probably be even harder. So watching the show and then reading the books and then seeing where the books diverge from the show was just so rewarding, and it was like a whole new experience. Like you reach A Feast for Crows and like A Dance of Dragons, it's like a totally different story.
Yeah.
Except for like some like Jon's death and what's going on in King's Landing and stuff like that. It's like a whole new story, and it was so refreshing, and it was super gratifying, and I loved it. I think A Feast for Crows is my favorite book in the series, and just because I love the Ironborn. So I think it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. Matt, what about you?
I would say that the journey's worth it. I was rewatching like old Game of Thrones clips. Like I was watching Battle of the Blackwater scenes, and like I still get very nostalgic for it. And I don't think like what happened to Game of Thrones ruins those scenes for me, because I was watching them and I was still really enjoying them. But it is disappointing to see what happens, to see how it ended, and we can just look forward to the books and hope that they can be better. And ultimately, if it's not as successful as it could have been, like at least we'll still enjoy it. Matters.
While we end things, can we make our predictions for when Winds of Winter comes out, so we have it on record, so we can see who's right? Okay. When you guys think Winds of Winter is coming out? Realistically, like
June 2022.
June 2022.
Yeah.
I say Christmas 2022.
Okay.
I say Christmas 2021.
Oh,
whoa! Okay.
Whoa! Oh my God!
I'm feeling both. I think I would probably agree with you, Tyler, but that last not a blog update from George got me a little hopeful.
Yeah. That's the thing, though.
He's churning out the chapters. I think.
In 2016, he said he thought he could get it done by 2017. And then 3 years.
I think there's some factors to consider. I think George had that book mostly written in 2016, and he was rushing it. Then he wasn't happy, and he rewrote it. And now he doesn't have that pressure. He has the pressure to finish the book, but he doesn't have the pressure from there's the pressure from the A Song of Ice and Fire fans, but he doesn't have that pressure from like the massive Game of Thrones fans, and like HBO executives. And so I think he's a little more relaxed, and he can give himself more time. He's had plenty of time. He's churning out these chapters. I think the gears are working again. I think he's probably finished a lot of the complex things, and now he's just sort of getting things in a position so that he can write A Dream of Spring fairly quickly. Hopefully.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's good.
So I think the gears are moving, and I think he's getting things done. I think he finished like 3 or 4 chapters in the past month.
The first 3 or 4 chapters of the book are done.
Yeah.
Making progress.
He said the book is massive. I mean, he's probably written at least 1,000 manuscript pages already so far. I really hope so.
You like to hope. You like to dream.
Like I said, I'm dedicating like months to read this book because I'm not rushing it. I want to just fully immerse myself into this book because
How many chapters did he release that like were cut from A Dance of Dragons?
there's like 8, I think. There's like 2.
So that's
Well, I mean, there's like some that you just read out loud at like cons, and then people like transcribed it.
Yeah.
I think he's released like officially like 5 or 6.
so that's like he's probably got like 150 pages done.
Yeah.
I guess you could
From
officially say that he
2011.
is
Yeah,
from
2011, yeah.
from 2011. I mean
Yeah.
pre-2011. So I think it's fair to say that he has well over 1,000 manuscript pages done, and I think hopefully he's figured things out enough so that he can write these chapters fast. So I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. I don't say it's going to be like a year from now, but it's definitely going to be a little more than a year from now.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So December 2021. That's my guess.
I got
Okay. We're all kind of like in the same ballpark, so it'll be interesting
Yeah.
to see. What if it's like 2024?
At that point, I'm done. At that point, it's
That's
like,
like I picked the latest date possible so that he would technically be closest.
yeah.
When it doesn't come out for another 5 years.
All right, Matt. What's our call to action, and what should people watch? Because this might be the first time they're seeing our channel and our show.
Yeah. Well, subscribe and comment your favorite film fraud because we like to use it to brag about. We like to use it to insult each other. We have an Old Guard and Palm Beach.
Palm Springs
Palm
review
Springs
coming.
movie review coming out later this week, as well as continuing our director series with Christopher Nolan and a movie that we're not going to reveal yet. Insomnia.
Damn.
And if you like more Game of Thrones and something less Fire content, I'll be more than happy to provide it.
Oh God.
Because I have so many ideas we could talk about.
Yeah. Basically, this is like a kind of a one-off. Unless you guys want it more, comment what you guys think. We welcome all hate, except we get our feelings hurt really easily. So please be nice.
I predicted season 8 3
Yeah.
years ago.
I can link that. Matt and I had an old YouTube channel called Not Movie Hacks where Matt predicted season 8.
Some guy in the Reddit commented this was painful to watch.
Yeah. Well, guess
And
what?
I was like, who's right?
Guess what? Matt was right. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I don't have any other final comments. That's it.
Valar Morghulis.
Valar Morghulis.
Valar Dohaeris.
All right. Bye guys. This has been Film Frauds.